There we go. Hello, inventors and entrepreneurs. My name is Andrew Krause. I'm one of the co-founders here at Inventor Groups of America. Wave your hands in front of the screen if you're new here to Inventors Groups of America, and type into the chat, I'm new, so we can welcome you all. IGA was founded by Stephen Key and myself to teach individuals how to best commercialize their product ideas, as well as strengthen and support inventor groups across the nation. We have a directory of local and regional inventor groups on our website. If you're located near one, we highly encourage you to join. We would love to hear your name and what state or country you're from, so go on over right now to the chat box, open it up, and type in your state or country and share. So please do not disclose anything that is confidential and is not already publicly available. This meeting is going to be recorded and will be harnessed on our website and our YouTube channel soon. If you have any questions for this speaker, please type them into the chat. The chat button's right below. That'll open up on your right then. So now I'm going to turn things over to IGA Director Madeline Key, who's going to introduce our very special guest from the Patent Office. Madeline, take it away.
Hello, Inventors Groups of America, and it's fantastic to know that I just got a promotion. Andrew bumped me up to Director of IGA when here I am just thinking I'm handling some marketing. It is absolutely fantastic to be on this meeting with all of you today. We have a very special guest. We have USPTO Director Kathi Vidal joining us. Some of you might have been able to make it to our last meeting with the director in July. It was absolutely inspiring hearing her enthusiasm, her plans, and I'm so appreciative that she's willing to come back and give us a thorough update on the work that she's been doing, on how she wants to move forward, because frankly, there's a lot to be caught up on. I want to spend just a moment talking a little bit about what the director has been up to before we get underway. She's been remarkably visible in her first full year as USPTO director, working hard to restore certainty to the patent system and making good on her promise to be as transparent as possible. She understands that you, inventors, not only want to protect your inventions, but you want to make an impact and you want to be rewarded for that. Over the past year, she has focused on soliciting input on the most important issues facing the Patent Office from a very wide variety of sources, and is now, like she stated repeatedly, primed for action. Before she began representing the United States in charge of America's Innovation Agency, Director Vidal was both an engineer and an IP attorney. She's represented innovators and startup companies with limited resources, as well as many of our country's most successful and well-known companies. I've been personally impressed by how much she has made it a part of her mission to outreach to under-resourced inventors and underrepresented inventors, really making it plain in her speeches that she believes all of us have ideas and that we should be empowered to contribute them. Andrew, will you please bring up the slides?
Sure.
Okay. Thank you. I'd also like to take a moment to thank everyone who was able to respond to our survey and to write in some questions for the director. We encourage you, like Andrew said, to write your questions here, but we also explicitly and directly shared with her your questions before. Next slide, Andrew. Okay, like I said, the director's been very busy. I want to share just a few examples of what she and the office have been doing so you have a better sense of what I mean. Next slide. This is a slightly blurry graph that I pulled from the USPTO.gov website, actually a blog that the director wrote. This should give you a small sense of what she's been doing. She's signed 13 memorandums of understanding with trading partners, including other countries. She has repeatedly asked for comments from inventors, from other states. She's had over 230 fireside chats. Wow, that's absolutely remarkable. Next slide, please. I would particularly like to highlight the Patent Pro Bono program, which has expanded and continued to reach more populations with free legal services. This program has been ongoing for a while now, but it seems like it's ramping up in speed. So if you are a person that is seeking some help with your intellectual property, that is free or low cost. That's definitely something to be aware of. Next slide. Just a quick reminder before we get underway of what the USPTO's strategic goals are. It's to drive inclusive US innovation and global competitiveness, to promote the efficient delivery of reliable IP rights, to promote the protection of IP against new and persistent threats, and there really do seem to be always new and persistent threats, bring innovation to positive impact, and generate impactful employee and customer experiences by maximizing agency operations. Next slide. Here she is moderating a fireside chat with energy leaders at the 2023 ARPA-E Energy Innovation Summit. I thought it was absolutely incredible. She's been on the road meeting with foreign IP office leaders, including the Director General of the Industrial Property Registry of Panama, the Canadian Intellectual Property Office, the State Intellectual Property Service of Kyrgyzstan, and the National Service of IP Rights of Ecuador. Next slide, please. I myself was really honored to attend an event at the USPTO that she hosted to launch Women's Entrepreneurship. This is an example of how she's reaching out to an underrepresented group, women in particular, encouraging them to get mentorship, to learn about intellectual property, to figure out their financing. Next slide. And I really wanted to share this quote before finally I ask your questions. We need a robust and reliable IP ecosystem that cultivates an innovation mindset and catalyzes inclusive innovation and entrepreneurialism, one that drives economic prosperity, US competitiveness, supply chain resiliency, national security, and creative world problem solving. Director, that's a really tall order. You've got a lot on your plate. I think that should be very obvious. Next slide, please. Okay, so actually we're going to skip ahead a couple slides. If you have not recently visited uspto.gov, you should absolutely do that. Thank you, Andrew. Go ahead. Okay, so I want to jump right into it with our questions, which I tried to organize in a couple coherent ways. So first, let's talk about filing intellectual property, something that our audience really wanted to know. Are there any ways to speed up the process of filing and being issued intellectual property? Can innovators get their IP issued faster?
So I appreciate that, and I'm very excited to be here. Thank you again for having me. I will say a couple things in response to what Madeline just said. So first of all, I did get questions in the chat about my background. I am an electrical engineer. I have a bachelor's and master's and worked in industry for 5 years. So I know what it's like to be in some of your shoes where you work for a company or when you're certainly understand that process. Also want to let you know that I really am grateful for what you do. We're here for you. So that's why I'm always excited to take these.
Coming to you tomorrow, Friday morning.
So I assume you all can hear me, right?
Yes.
Yeah, we're
Yes.
fine.
Okay, perfect. So, we're here for you. And so always happy to take these kind of meetings. I'm also, as Madeline knows, I've also been writing communications directly to inventor groups like yours so that I can communicate more directly. I did one already and I've got another one that's primed to go that I hope to send out shortly that will explain a lot of what we're talking about today. So I'm looking forward to getting the word out directly on much of what we're doing. And just, I will say, as I get out there through women's entrepreneurship, which I know Madeline was there for the first one, grateful for that. I'm always talking about the benefit of being in groups like yours and the great work that groups like yours do to support inventors and innovation. So thank you for all of that. So for the first question, are there ways to speed up the process of filing and being issued intellectual property? We recently introduced a first-time filer expedited examination program for micro entities. So we are hoping that you will take advantage of that. One benefit of the program, as we were developing it, one of the thoughts I had is, well, what about people who are already in the system? Will they be able to benefit from that program? Absolutely. So if you've got a patent pending, it's worth looking into it if you're a micro entity. This is a pilot program. So while we'll be expediting applications through this program, we're looking to gather feedback and then determine whether we continue with the program, and if so, how we evolve it. So please avail yourself of that. I will also note that that one of the things that I heard, one of the comments I heard from an inventor group, this one in Colorado, when I met with some inventors that were using our pro bono services, is some of them said, we understand some of our colleagues would like to move more quickly, but some of us would actually like to move more slowly. So we're also introducing a program, or we're soliciting feedback to develop a program to allow stakeholders to move more slowly. If you want to take the time to understand whether what you filed for a patent on is going to be commercially viable and you don't want to pay the fees, you don't want to pay for lawyers, we're also looking to provide that to you as well. And there's also, and just so you know, if you're not a micro entity, I see thank you for responding to that in terms of the definition of micro entity. If you're not a micro entity, there are ways to expedite your patent. You can pay a fee. So if you have the money to pay a fee, you can do that. That's a very good way of getting it expedited. And then we do have free programs depending upon the technology of what you're inventing. So if it's in the green technology space, you can expedite your application. If it relates to cancer, you may be able to expedite it as well.
Thank you. I'm fascinated and curious to hear more if you're able to share about potentially slowing down the issuing, because that's absolutely something that we hear too, is to say, hey, I would like some more time to test the market. Does that look like extending the life of a provisional patent application potentially? Or am I thinking in a different direction?
So it's not. So first of all, thank you for mentioning that. I hope everybody is aware of the fact that you can file a provisional application to get your date, and that can slow it down in and of itself by that 1 year period. This is actually for the main application, not for the provisional application, and it would be a way to slow down that process. I can get you more information on that. I believe it just went to public. That's right. Yeah. It is out there publicly. I think it came out this past week. So I will make sure in the communication that I send to you that we provide information. I believe it may be a request for comments. Would love your feedback on the proposal in there. And if you think we should evolve it in any way, that would be helpful to you.
That's fantastic. I know Steve in particular has said that he actually finds it beneficial, the gray area of having a patent pending, where you don't quite know what's going to happen yet and how that can be used in a business context. So that's really interesting.
Excellent.
Something that we hear often at IGA as well as InventRight is sometimes that there are some challenges using the USPTO.gov website for people who perhaps haven't filed a PPA before or are representing themselves pro se. Are there plans to make the USPTO website more friendly? Are there any ways for inventors to weigh in on that or to maybe be useful? I believe I saw something recently where the USPTO might be even seeking volunteers on this exact topic.
Absolutely. And you are absolutely right about that. So the USPTO.gov website was recently overhauled. So if you thought it was difficult to use, please check in. I will say that as we get feedback on any aspect of the website, we act. So when we introduced our recent search utility, we got feedback saying the prior way of doing search was much easier. We immediately went into action to evolve the new system to make it even more user-friendly. I just heard this week that, and I can't quote the survey, but we just got ranked #1 in a survey on government websites. So was really excited about that. So definitely check it out. And you're right that we are looking for volunteers. We're always looking for input on how we can do better, but we actually have a notice on our news update webpage with the date of May 23rd, where we're seeking individuals who want to help us improve the website. So please definitely comment on that. And then I'll also note, so that's our website, and we want it to be as user-friendly as possible. We're trying to use plain language wherever possible. We're constantly focused on making that as user-friendly as possible. The other thing, obviously, is we also value face-to-face communication. So don't forget that we have PTRCs, or Patent Trademark Resource Centers, in libraries across the entire nation. So if you're having any concerns with how to use the website, how to file a patent, how to register a trademark, we have people around the country that you can always go to get help. And then obviously we have our regional offices, and soon we'll be opening, meaning in the next year or two, we'll be opening a regional office in the Southeast region of the US, as well as community outreach offices. We are going to release a request for comment on that imminently, if it has not gone out already, but I've definitely approved it. And look forward to your feedback on that as well, in terms of what do you want to see from us on the ground in our offices? What do you want to see in the outreach offices? And how can we better serve you?
Fantastic. If anyone who's attending now has been able to visit a regional office in person, it would be amazing to share with the director what your experience was like in a comment. What is the best way to be informed about all RFCs coming from the USPTO? Is there one way of finding out about those? I know they're very well reported on in other places, but I'm curious to ask you directly.
I appreciate that. So if you go onto our website, you can sign up to a subscription service where you will get those updates by email with all the activities going on at the USPTO. In fact, I signed on to that before I came on board, to see the types of communications that are going out. And it's the way I keep track of when things actually hit the public, because often we approve things and that's actually when we first announce things to the public. So that would be the best way of doing it. I also, where there's particular content that I think is more relevant to individual inventors, to small to medium-sized enterprises, I do plan to communicate directly with you, Madeline, and your group. I'll send it to you, and obviously you can share the direct message from me, letting folks know what's available, what's come out, and different programs they can avail themselves of, as well as requests for comments where we are seeking their input.
That's very helpful. There's so much that the USPTO is doing. I really appreciate that you're making an extra effort to make sure that information gets in front of independent inventors.
Madeline, we have a comment from Carrie. It says, yes, recently I did an inventor showcase at the San Jose USPTO and was able to tour the facility, and it was fantastic. That was from Carrie. You'd asked for
wonderful.
comments.
Yay, thanks, Carrie.
That's great to hear. Next slide, Andrew.
Yep.
Okay. You and I both know, Director, that financial resources are on the minds of pretty much every inventor. This is something we frequently hear from inventors, and while it seems unreasonable to expect the USPTO to provide funding, I'm curious, especially since you've been addressing this on your women's entrepreneurship meetings, what financial resources are available to inventors? Do they exist? And how can inventors that are here today start to become aware of them and tap into them?
So I'm glad, Madeline, that you mentioned the Women's Entrepreneurship Initiative. As I always say, that's inclusive, not exclusive. So everybody is welcome to attend those, and men attend those all the time. So that's our first real active program that we're running at least monthly, where we're trying to help inventors and entrepreneurs on their entire journey. So not only being here to help with the patents and trademarks, with granting patents and registering trademarks, but also to, on the front end, make sure that we're bringing more people into the innovation ecosystem, and that we're helping entrepreneurs and inventors bring their ideas to impact, whether that's licensing their IP, whether that's building companies, creating jobs. We want to make sure that inventions just don't stay on a shelf, that patents don't stay on a shelf, that we help people get them to impact. So through that, there's a couple things that we're focused on. One is all of our pro bono work, which happy to address that separately. I believe you have a question on that, but that is one way where if people are under-resourced and they're looking for financial support, we can alleviate some of the burdens of having to pay for a lawyer to work with you to secure intellectual property. So that's one initiative. And I will say, if you email we@uspto.gov, you will get regular updates on everything we're doing with our Women's Entrepreneurship Initiative. We focus on women who can talk about their journeys. Madeline talked about inventor groups and the importance of that. We are trying to highlight funding opportunities, how to get funding, how to navigate the private funding sector, how to navigate public funding. We'll talk about actual programs that are available to help folks get money, incubators, accelerators, everything that's out there in individual communities and that's available nationwide. So I could go on and on about all the different funding that's out there. What I will probably do is, if you don't mind, I will follow up either separately with you, Madeline, or in an email, because I'd love for you to know everything the Department of Commerce, which is where we sit, everything we're doing to put funding out there, everything our sister agencies are doing. There's so much work out there, and now more than ever, there's funding available, and you just need to know how to access it. And I will say most private funding often follows government funding, whether it's ARPA, whether it's some other agencies. So it's a really great place to keep your eye out. We're going to be doing a better job even getting the word out on funding opportunities and creating marketplaces so that you can get your ideas to impact. Just recently on that, we held a marketplace around green tech, where we tried to bring in everybody in the ecosystem to talk about and ensure people had the connections to get green tech to market.
That's exciting. I think that I love your answer, because I think that this is a question that feels really perplexing for inventors. There's this sense that there isn't any money available, that they have to do it all themselves, that they need a lot of money to be able to commercialize their invention. And in the research that I've done, that's not accurate. And I think the process of learning what financial resources are available is a multi-pronged one, and is going to involve networking, because I think financial resources become available to you when you understand different levers to pull, when you understand who to go to. So thank you for stating that you'll follow up and do more about this. And it's exciting to see the USPTO recognize this as something that's really important to inventors.
Well, and I'll just add one more thing on that. And this is one of the reasons why I really love engaging, with inventor groups, and, especially with you folks, because you're so engaged on this and have such great ideas. We do have a path for patents. We do have a website that's meant to help people get patents to market. That's mostly about licensing. I do think it'd be great to figure out how we can come up with some sort of a portal or marketplace where, if inventors are looking to get their inventions to market, they may have different things in mind. Some may want to license, some may want to collaborate. There may be people out there, entrepreneurs that we meet through We or otherwise, who would love to create a company, but really need to team with an inventor. So we will put some more thought into that, into how we can do even more to help inventors bring their ideas to market.
Fantastic. I think in working in the inventor space, there's often this idea that the inventor is doing it all alone, or they have to do it alone, and it's on them to solve every problem and overcome every obstacle. And when I interview successful inventors, they without a doubt mention all of the people that were instrumental to them, their mentors, their peers, the people who joined their team, the people they employed. That I think having that mindset of, okay, how am I going to build my team to tackle this process? That might look like an official business partner, but maybe it doesn't. But inventors need to be supported. I think we both know that. This is a very specific question, but I thought that it really spoke to how much inventors believe in the value of their intellectual property. One of our members asked, is it possible to institute an option to pay for all future maintenance fees at once to avoid the possibility of missing a payment and thus losing a valuable patent? Is this not, maybe this is an option now?
So I do not believe that's an option now. I believe there's a 1-year window, 6 months before and 6 months after a deadline, that you can pay your maintenance fees. But let me look into that to see if that is something that's feasible. And if I'm wrong about the 6 months before and after, I will get back to you. But I think right now there is a window, and I don't know that we can accept payments before that, but I will look into that.
That makes sense when I thought about it a little further, because a patent could end up being challenged. And if you had paid all of the maintenance fees in advance, that might be even more painful in that case. My next question.
Oh yeah, Madeline, I was just going to say, I love the idea of just having options for people. I mean, we really want something that people can find their right path in terms of what works for them. Like we talked about the ability to speed up prosecution. Some may want to slow it down. Some may want to defray costs. Some may want to take care of it in advance. Maybe that's important for I mean, who knows why that may be important, including so that they don't miss the payment. So to the extent that we can offer it, we would love to be as flexible as possible. So I will definitely look into that.
I appreciate that about your perspective. You're really interested in meeting people where they are as opposed to forcing them to do things a certain way. And I find that refreshing. So we talked a bit today about the patent pro bono program. This explicitly is asking who qualifies and how does it help inventors?
That's perfect. And I see a note with somebody asking for a link to it, which I'm sure somebody will provide. I will say one thing that I have found works extremely well is I often go to a search tool and I type in USPTO and then whatever it is I'm looking for. And it's for the most part on the front page. So just if you ever need something, that algorithm has worked pretty well for me. So in terms of the patent pro bono program, so first of all, we have a number of pro bono programs. So some of the pro bono programs we have with schools throughout the US, with universities, we have 60 of them. So you can go to a school, some of them have programs for patents and some for trademarks and some for both. So that's one resource that you can go to. We also, the USPTO teams with 21 pro bono organizations that collectively cover the entire United States. You can go on our website to find those as well. Whether you're under-resourced or not, you can always reach out to them to ask them a question. But if you are under-resourced, they can actually help you file for a patent. So that's really focused on patents. We are working with them. In fact, I just got an invitation to meet with them at the USPTO next week. We are working with them to learn more about what they can do to help support inventors and to support others in the innovation ecosystem. So I know one of the things we talked to them about is potentially posting a draft NDA, non-disclosure agreement on the website. I know that when I spoke to the seed industry, especially family farmers, they were wondering, what to do if they're sent a threat letter. And so we're trying to figure out what needs to be solved for, and where we, the USPTO, cannot offer legal advice. What we can do is we can collaborate with them and they can post those types of things and that type of advice on their website. So I know that they're working really hard on this. They're now hosting sessions with inventors throughout the country. They had the first one about a month ago, and I know that they've got 3 or 4 more that they're rolling out this year to really engage more deeply. I would encourage you again to stay posted on where we have those, what they look like, so you can participate. But they're doing a lot. And I will say with that, what we have learned is that when we do actually reach out there and support folks, the numbers in terms of participation has been phenomenal. So whereas right now, the percent of women, US women on patents is between 12 and 13%. When we get out there through pro bono, the percent of people we help that are women is 43%. And I could go through the numbers for those who identify as African-American or Black, 35% of those who are assisted through pro bono fall into that category, 14% Hispanic, on and on. A good percent, 8 to 9% are veterans. So it just shows that we know that inventors are everywhere. We know that innovators are everywhere. And by offering those services, and in the last year, we infuse those services with a lot more money, a lot more support. They had to match with money to make sure that they're even more successful and can be even stronger for you. I will note, in addition to those 2 services, the schools that offer trademark and patent help, as well as the organizations that offer patent help, we also have support at the PTAB and for the PTAB. Right now, the PTAB support is just for appeals. So if you don't get granted a patent and you want to appeal it, you can now, we have lawyers standing by if you're under-resourced to help you with that appeal. And we are looking to extend that program to AIA trials as well coming up. We're also looking at potentially being able to offer experts for AIA trials, experts who might want to get a first AIA trial under their belt, maybe willing to step forward and do the work at no charge. So we're investigating whether we can offer even more when it comes to that.
Exciting. That's interesting. Andrew, next slide, please. Okay, patent quality. All inventors want to know that the patent that they are eventually issued is of high quality and that they'll be able to stand behind it. So we have a range of questions to that effect. These questions are written quite broadly, hoping and thinking that you will fill in details and the specifics. Can you talk to us about some of the steps the USPTO is taking or plans to take to minimize the differences between patent examiners. You know, inventors will point out that sometimes they're working with a patent examiner who really issues very few patents, or maybe sometimes they're working with a patent examiner who seems to allow a lot of patents to be issued. What are your thoughts on that?
So I have a lot of thoughts on that. First of all, we do keep an eye out for trends like that to make sure that everybody, any data that suggests that there are different standards, we keep track of, and then we address any of those issues. In addition to that, we do have a quality group that looks at applications to see if they meet certain quality metrics when it comes to 103, 112, the basic statutory provisions for getting a patent. So that system is underway. We also have a feedback loop between the PTAB and the examiner. So if there's certain decisions made at the PTAB that shows work that could have been done better, we want to make sure that that's a learning lesson. We also make sure that we monitor cases as they come out, because sometimes what happens is you are granted a patent and then the law will change. I mean, that doesn't happen all that often, but when it comes to certain areas of the law, there could be some flux. So we want to make sure that that's infused back into the patent examiners as soon as possible. One of the things I did in the last year is I went out and listened to patent examiners across the agency. I heard from, in total, employees, most of whom were patent examiners, between 1,500 and 2,000 patent examiners and or other USPTO employees. I listened to them on what they needed to do a better job. One of the things they mentioned was our routing process for actually getting your patent application to the right examiner. So we changed that immediately to make that system more robust so that there was a greater likelihood that your patent gets to the right examiner in the first place. And if the examiner felt like it wasn't in their area of expertise, we changed the process so they could get it off their desk more readily so it could get to the right person. So we worked on that routing and classification. We're also now using AI, artificial intelligence, on the routing and classification to make sure they get to the right examiners. We also instituted a process this year where there's going to be greater collaboration between the examiners. So as you know, many of the ideas that you're thinking of, they don't fall neatly into a bucket. You may be working in the bio space, but there may be some aspect of what you're doing that invokes computer science or computer engineering. You may be working in any space that could involve AI. And so what we're doing is where there's a topic like AI that we've seen permeate, in the case of AI, half of our technology centers, we are offering additional training so that all examiners can train on AI, whether or not they're in that particular field. And then we're offering the ability to collaborate so that if you're an examiner in one field and you have an application that has two fields, you can collaborate with an examiner in that other field, and that will help improve the quality. We also are upping our game when it comes to search, because one of the main reasons why patents in the past, they may not be quite as robust, it's because people are able to employ better search tools now using artificial intelligence to find prior art that they weren't able to find. So we want to make sure that that art gets found so that you can consider it and shape your claims around it to make sure that you're claiming something that will not be invalidated later. The other thing we're working on is we did do a request for comment on patent eligibility to see whether we should evolve our guidance on that. So we're considering that. And we're also looking at guidance on 103 or obviousness and 112 or some of the other requirements to make sure that we're putting out guidance that you can rely on when filing a patent application and that can be used both with the examiners and the PTAB. And I've got more, but let me pause because I know I just shot a lot your way. But we do have more in the works when it comes to the RFCs we've put out there on robust and reliable patents, as well as work we're doing on clarity of the record that I'm also happy to go into.
Sure. Speaking broadly, what my takeaway from what you just shared is that to create greater certainty, it's really necessary to get everyone on the same page about what the standards are and how to reach them from the very beginning. So when PTAB is looking at a patent, they're analyzing it from the same standards that were available for the inventor to read about and to know about and to be able to visualize being held to those same standards, as well as the patent examiner. Is that a bit of the idea here?
It is. And the other thing I will say is, so yes, that is the idea, and we're working on that. The other thing is, the clearer the patent is, the easier it is to license it, and the less likely it's going to be invalidated later. So, that's something that we take responsibility for. Whoever is prosecuting the patent also has to own that to some extent. So I would just be careful if somebody's trying to say, let's stretch your claims and get you more. You should make sure it's as clear as possible, because otherwise that's when you end up in litigation, when you don't really know what claim terms mean and people are going to fight about it. So we're trying to help with that part of the ecosystem as well.
That's very exciting, and I think very relevant to hear. Something Steve is frequently a fan of saying is, if you don't understand what's being claimed in your patent application, it's very unlikely that a judge or a jury or PTAB or someone else will. And I think there's this idea, because there is legalese and it's frequently not the inventor who's writing the application, that there can be this gap in understanding of, okay, well, it sounds good. I don't quite understand it, but I think it's good. And my belief is that when the inventor is working more closely with the patent prosecutor and more involved in really making sure that not only they understand what's being claimed, but someone else's, that's going to be a much stronger patent. So it's exciting to hear that from you as well.
I just have to say, I love that. If you don't understand it, like nobody else is. I think that's fantastic, because there is some legalese that has to be used, but it's very little. I mean, there's certain words that you may use, like if you say a word the second time, you may say said instead of the, like there's some minor legalese in terms of how the claim needs to be shaped, but the actual words of the claim, you should be able to understand it, because otherwise nobody will understand it for licensing. They're going to think they don't need to license it, because they'll think, well, there's lots of ways of interpreting that. How do I know that I'm on the hook? Or how do I know that I even want to do that if you're licensing it before you develop a product? So I completely agree. That's a really good test. And don't let the lawyers tell you that, that it means something that you don't. If you don't see it, it should be written in a way that you do see it, because otherwise nobody's going to understand it. The examiner is going to have a harder time. If you want to get your patent more quickly, write it so the examiner can understand what it is that you invented, because otherwise it's very difficult to search for prior art to figure out, what the claims mean.
I think that's a really good point. Not one that I necessarily hear people talking about enough. Would you say then that if an inventor is considering, they're looking to hire someone to help them with their patent, that something they might ask for is to read some of their other patents and to try to analyze, okay, this is written in a way that I can understand or I'm grasping? Or do you have any other tips to help make that assessment?
I don't think I can give tips on how to hire. I don't think there's certain things I'm not allowed to say in this position, but
Sure.
I will say that you can have an open discussion and say, I understand some patent attorneys, try and use loose language to make the patent as broad as possible. I'm concerned that if we do that it could be invalidated. I really like to make sure that the claims are understandable and that I understand what they mean at the end of the day, and make sure, you can make sure the attorney is on the same page with you on that. But I do, and by the way, I was taught to stretch the claims as broadly as possible. I think that's a normal way people are taught. So it's really up to the company or the individual to just own it at the end of the day and make sure that the description makes sense, to make sure that the claims make sense, to make sure that it all goes together. So that's certainly something that would be valuable in terms of making sure that the patent claims are written in such a way that are more likely to be sustained and understandable, and that you can actually use them for the purpose for which you intended when you got the patent.
That's great advice. Thank you. Here's a big question that I think is important to all of us. What steps is the USPTO taking or plan to take to increase the quality of patents being granted? Will these steps make it less likely for a patent to be overturned later?
So I went through a whole bunch of things that we're doing when it comes loosely to having more robust and reliable IP rights that once they're granted, it's much less likely that they would ever be overturned. So I will say, in addition to that, we did do the request for comment on robust and reliable. We're looking at that now and determining whether we need to make some additional changes. And generally, we're very focused on helping you make the record clear, like helping work with our examiners on the processes, whether it's the interviews that they may have with you, which I highly recommend interviews, that you get involved yourself and not just have your lawyers be involved in the interviews with the PTO, so you can hear everything firsthand. But not only the interviews, but also any reasons for allowance. The more we can help you make a clear record, the better it's going to be for you at the end of the day. And so will that make it less likely for patents to be overturned? I believe it will. If we help you craft a patent that shows what you truly invented and helps you distinguish from stuff that existed before, that puts you in a more solid position. And if you combine that with our greater ability to find prior art, any prior art that you bring to the table where you want to make it clear that you've differentiated from it, I mean, all that is going to make your patent stronger.
That makes sense. Something I hear occasionally from the inventor community is a request that the Patent Trial and Appeal Board, also known as PTAB, be eliminated. Is this a likely outcome? Would you encourage inventors, like what is realistic for inventors to sort of be thinking about PTAB? Clearly it's on some of their minds. It's something that's frequently talked about as being scary. I'm curious to hear your thoughts about how you view PTAB and would encourage the inventor community to.
Well, and I appreciate that. So I work with our PTAB judges on a weekly basis. So I work on director review. I work on all the work that we're doing to reform the PTAB. These are incredible people. They understand our mission and vision, which you can see in our strategic plan. We have a draft out now. It should be released in a couple weeks. They know that our goal is to bring more people into the ecosystem, to issue robust and reliable IP that people can rely upon. So they know that. Now, in terms of their roles, they are expected to adjudicate cases based on what Congress set forth. And there is work that we can do to evolve that. So that is what we're doing with what's called an ANPRM. It's an advanced notice of proposed rulemaking that deals with some of what I believe are inventor concerns with not the judges themselves. They're phenomenal with the current rules around how the PTAB makes its decision. So I would encourage you, and I will put a note to myself to put that in the email that I send with all the different things that are going on, to provide comments. They're due June 20th, which is a date we don't plan to extend. Your comments can be as light or rigorous. It doesn't matter. We want to hear from you. So don't feel like it has to be a thesis on something. Just tell us what you're experiencing and what you think could be changed, and look at the ideas that we put in there. There's a lot of different ideas. Would love to hear from you on that. The more we can hear, the more we can support you and make sure that we're shaping the practices to comport with.
Closer.
No, you're fine.
The more we can comport our processes to align with what supports you. In terms of whether the PTAB ever changes in any way, major gets eliminated, all of that is for Congress. And I know Congress is focused right now on making it work, addressing, we've lived with it for, since 2011. It's, we now know how people can use it in different ways that may be may disadvantage smaller inventors. So we want to hear from you on how we can fix it. And what happens with Congress is something that we're certainly happy to provide them with technical advice on that.
Thank you. Andrew, next slide, please.
And I'll just, while you're going to the next slide, I will say that the PTAB judges also want to make sure that it's that the work that they do is relatable, that you understand it, that you understand the mechanism. So we've been working on that as well. They do stadium tours. I went to the last one. They have a stadium tour coming up. I believe it's in September down. I think that one's in North Carolina. They're planning additional stadium tours. They do board side chats. They have specific programming for inventors. So to the extent that they can't in any one case do anything other than be a judge and adjudicate what's out there, which we're fixing, or at least evolving that to better support inventors. To the extent you need to understand how to use the process, they're doing everything they can to get the word out there.
I would encourage inventors to take advantage of those opportunities. I think that there's been a lot of misinformation and confusion around PTAB that has resulted in fear, and there doesn't have to be fear. There can be a lot of learning taking place to navigate what you might do to avoid being in that situation, how you might handle it if you are, in really pragmatic ways. Okay, we're heading into the home stretch here. These are my last section of questions from our members. This was actually asked in a couple different ways. Are there any opportunities for inventors to share their inventions with the Department of Defense, as well as other government agencies for licensing?
So absolutely, we touched on that a little bit before, and I have notes on a whole bunch of different ways that you can do this. So again, I will probably communicate with you after this, hopefully within the next week, to get you more specific information. I will say the Department of Defense recently issued its small business strategy. And I think that's something worth looking at, including DoD's Small Business Innovation Research Program, which has $1 billion a year to invest in small companies. So every year DoD invests that money. There's also DARPA, National Security Agency. There's programs through ARPA, ARPA-H, the Commerce Department. SBIR is a $4 billion government-wide program providing funding to about 4,000 innovative companies per year. And I'm a vice chair of NACI, the National Advisory Council on Innovation and Entrepreneurship. We're also working on funding opportunities. So I will get you this information because I realize there's so much content and we only have an hour. So I'll make sure that I get this information to you so that then you can follow up and actually explore it, because we want you to see what's out there. And we're going to continually try and make sure we're updating you either through my individual communications with inventor groups, through our Women Entrepreneurship Program, where we talk about these opportunities, and otherwise.
That would be fantastic. I think there's a lot of interest in this area, and it would be helpful for inventors to have that information consolidated in one place, whether it's a place that we host or somewhere on the USPTO.gov site. So in my work helping inventors to educate them, to encourage them, a common fear is having an idea stolen, is having intellectual property taken from them. What would you say to an inventor who is so fearful of this happening, they're not willing to move forward?
So first of all, we have to face the reality that when you've got a great idea, somebody will likely want to take it. So what we're doing is trying to support inventors and entrepreneurs in that process. I will say, first of all, you need to protect your intellectual property, because that's really the biggest safeguard you have against somebody stealing your idea. So I would say a few things on that. Number one, please be cyber secure. We are going to try and roll out programming on that, but a major way that entities, including mostly entities from outside the US, steal intellectual property is through cyber breaches. So we are going to roll out programming right now. The FBI has some programming on that for startups, where they've thought about a way for you to be cyber secure that doesn't bust the bank, which is what we're interested in doing. Then make sure you have your IP, because you can use your IP directly with some of the online providers of product to take down other people's product. You can use it at the border. You can use your trademarks at the border, educating the border on how to stop incoming products that infringe your trademark. There's so much that you can do once you have that intellectual property. And then what we're doing is we're working across different countries to make sure that there's strong IP and strong enforcement in other countries. We've got attachés on the ground in most regions of the world. When I just got back from the Philippines and Singapore, we're working with those offices so that wherever your products may be, we want to make sure that your IP is protected. So and generally we're trying to educate the public on buying real, not buying counterfeit products. We're working across government on that. The FBI is focused on that. I know that a lot of the online service providers, I met with one this week, that actually host products, they're also working on that. So, and you can call and talk to them directly as well. And to the extent we can provide more information on that, we will. But I would say, is there a risk? Yes, there's always risks with business. We are doing everything we can in government to cut down on the risk, to educate everybody, so that you can mitigate the risk and hopefully be extremely successful.
Yeah, I think you nailed it. I think mitigate the risk is really the right response there. I think if you have an idea that is so good that someone wants to steal it, that's a fundamentally good thing. And so you can be so afraid of that you don't do anything, or you can decide to prepare for that and to learn and to, what I want to say to inventors is really that the benefits of trying, I think, outweigh the negatives of having that happen.
What I would
seems
just
clear
say
to me.
Yeah, Madeline, I would just add on that, be careful with who you share your ideas with. So, make sure that if you're talking to a company, that you feel comfortable enough that you've got an NDA or something in place where they won't take your idea. And if they do that, you've at least got your provisional patent or a patent on file. When you think about funding sources, there are funding sources mostly from other countries, and certain other countries where people are acting as if they're funders and they're hearing ideas and then just taking them, or because if they haven't been protected with intellectual property. So I would just make sure that you're very careful and that you vet anybody you're sharing ideas with to make sure that that's not going to be a concern for you.
Absolutely. This is really a question from me. I'm so curious. You've been traveling around the world to meet other IP leaders and creators in other countries. I'd be curious to hear something that you've learned, if you've learned anything about what makes the US patent system uniquely special, or just been impressed or inspired. Anything you have to share, I would love to hear.
So part of the reason why I've been traveling somewhat extensively overseas is to make sure I'm protecting you, right? In the USPTO here in Alexandria, we can only do so much if other countries' laws, other countries' practices don't align with our practices. So I'm out there reinforcing the work that the USPTO does. So we have attachés in different regions of the country. We have people on the ground in countries, talking to them, helping draft their legislation, helping them advocate with their governments to ensure they have strong IP systems, trying to reduce barriers. Sometimes if a country is taking 10 years to issue a patent, we're going to want to be talking to them to see if we can do some capacity building, do some training with their examiners to help speed up the process. So our work across the globe is related to that, and then related to making sure that they have strong systems for enforcement of IP that are fair. So that's the work that I've been doing. I will say one of the things that surprised me was how much the other countries are especially our allies, are similarly aligned with us when it comes to supporting small to medium-sized enterprises and bringing more people into the innovation ecosystem. Most of these countries have programs around women. We did a joint statement with many countries in March of this year about supporting women when it comes to innovation and patenting. Most all of them are focused on small to medium-sized enterprises. When we had our trilats this year, which the US hosted, it was the US, Europe, and Japan. That was the topic. So I will say that has been extremely impactful, that we have like-minded countries and that they're watching us. They're watching us when it comes to AI. They're looking to see what we're going to do, which is why we're working really hard to make sure we get input from stakeholders on everything we're doing, that we're as fast as possible so that we can lead while being extremely careful to make sure that we're getting things right.
Wonderful. That's it for me. Steve, Andrew, do you have some comments or questions you would like to pose?
Stephen.
No, I think this is very interesting. Thank you very, very much, Director, for being so transparent, helping so many of us. I think there's a lot to do, and it looks like you're working extremely hard. So thank you so much for representing us small inventors. So thank you so much for doing that.
Well, and I appreciate that. I will say that we do have the Engage with the Director website. So if anybody on here heard something and they think they'd like to see something different, they think we can do more, please engage with me directly through that website so that we can solve for what, the issues that you see and what you'd like to see from the system.
Fantastic. Andrew, comments,
Well,
questions?
I was going to ask, somebody typed an interesting question. Jabo Walker said, basically paraphrasing, is there ever any consideration for extending the PPA from 1 to 2 years? We get this from time to time. Inventor, you can utilize a PPA to fish off the pier and see if there's any interest. And hey, is there any way maybe we could extend that 6 months or 2 years? They said a year. So it's just an interesting question.
So let me take that back, because obviously these are very complicated. We have to deal with Congress on things like this and international treaties. So sometimes we only have certain ability to do things based on international treaties. But I will take that back to the team. Thank you for that comment and suggestion, and I will take that back.
Well, it creates problems with international rights, and then some inventors not going to be aware of that. Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. The other question was a gentleman that was saying, is there any initiatives from the USPTO about clean or green products? Let's see if that was, who said that? That was from Dan.
Absolutely. So as much as we want more innovation and to get it to impact, we are keenly focused on key technology areas, green tech being one of them. So we do have the expedited examination program around green tech. That's something that we just announced, an extension of that, not only in terms of timing, but in terms of the categories of products that and patents we would expedite. That just came out. I'll also put some of this in the email communication that hopefully Madeline and others can share with all of you. We also just had a session, a full day expo, where we tried to bring all the players in the market around green technology together to help facilitate inventions getting to market in June. So next month, which is I guess coming up tomorrow, we are meeting with Europe, Japan, Korea, and China, because that is the IP5. Those are the 5 largest IP offices in the world. And we are focused on what each country is doing related to green tech and trying to get a readout from that so you know what everybody is doing. We have a collaboration with NOAA, Oceans and Atmosphere and Commerce. We've exchanged personnel. We're working on things together around green technology with them, with ARPA-E. With anybody who's dealing in that field, we are very focused on that. One thing I do want to announce, and I will put this in the write-up, we also have 2 programs right now, a Patents for Humanity program and a Trademarks for Humanity program. If you're bringing something to market with a trademark, a US trademark, or if you have a US patent related to green tech, please sign up. It's amazing. I had the honor of awarding the COVIDs for Humanity, or the Patents for Humanity COVID awards last year. I mean, one of the person was in tears. I mean, it was so joyous to get the recognition and to get the award. So I will send that information out as well, but we're very focused in that direction. If there's anything else that you think we can and should be doing, we would obviously love to hear that.
I just want to thank Elliot Freeman, one of our members. He keeps posting useful links to the Patent Office site in there. I didn't ask him to do that. Elliot, raise your hand there. Thank you so much. It's so kind of you. Thank you for helping the community. If you guys could type in your thanks for Kathi, well, maybe we do a group shot. Does that sound good, Madeline? If any of you want to go on camera. And so what we're going to do here real quick, we're going to like wave our hand or do a thumbs up, and I'll take a shot of a few that are on camera. So here we go. Everybody wave your hand. Only take a second, or thumbs up.
I think you have to put it in gallery mode though, don't you?
Yeah,
Madeline?
it is in gallery mode. There you go. All
'Cause
right. Keep waving your hand. There we go.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Andrew.
I think you
Appreciate
just aren't
it.
Stephen. I got it. You're good.
I think
That's
that's right.
fun.
Thank you. Thank you for being so transparent.
Of course,
And-
thanks for having me.
Well, you know, sometimes we don't think anybody's listening, right? Or we're talking to this black hole, but it seems like what you're doing at the USPTO, you're just opening the doors of communication. And we really appreciate that. And we know things are not perfect. We know that you're trying to make things better for all of us. And that does mean a lot to especially all of us independent inventors. So thank you so much.
Well, and I will just say thank you for all you do. It's, you know, we're here to help lift you and serve you so you can do your jobs, because you're the ones who are creating jobs. You're the ones who are solving problems. We just want to be a catalyst for all that in any way we can.
Wonderful.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Great.
I to me, clear takeaways, speak up, use your voice. Please reach out to Director Vidal, reach out to the USPTO. They very much want to hear your hopes, your concerns, and your fears, your tips, your requests. Let them know. They really want to hear from you. And I will definitely follow up. You will receive an email from IGA that touches with links on all the things that we've talked about today. That may take a couple weeks to get out, but you can look forward to that. And once again, thank you all so much for joining us. It's been a huge pleasure. I can't thank you enough, Director.
Thank you, Madeline. Thank you all.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Maddie, can you keep it open for just a minute? It looks like a lot of thank yous are coming in too.
Yeah, I'll keep
Yes.
it open.
Yeah,
If you guys want to type your thank yous in, that would be great. We can send them off to the director.
Yeah, I just want to say, I want to thank everybody for attending today. And I want to thank Madeline and of course, Andrew. It's very important that we have a nice communication with the USPTO, hear what's going on and being able to voice our concerns and issues and get a response back. I think when I first started out as an inventor, I was afraid of the USPTO. I was afraid of patent examiners. I thought they were there to stop me from getting a patent, but that's not the case. In fact, they want you to get a patent. They want to support you. They want you to be out there creating great innovations that helps the economy. So once you get past that fear, you realize, no, they're really a friend. And so I'm really glad that everybody was able to attend and support the new director. So thank you so much for the thank yous. I think they do mean a lot to us, but they also mean a lot to the USPTO, right? Because we will gather those up, won't we, Madeline? What will we do with these thank yous now?
Yes, what I did last time was directly share them with the director and her team and also share them on social media. And yeah, to me, in getting to meet USPTO employees, the clear takeaway is, why would someone work for this agency unless you cared about innovation or ideas or creativity, or maybe we're inclined to do that yourself. I think a lot of people working from the USPTO are probably inventors, but maybe didn't really have the courage to fully embrace that like you are all doing. And so I think improved communication is going to result in better outcomes. And there's been a lot of rancor among the USPTO and some members of the inventing community. So I'd like to double down on Steve's thank you of everyone who showed up today, who shared your questions, who shared your thanks. I sincerely appreciate it.
Yeah, and people from around the world, I see one person says they're not a US citizen. Another person, Rona, said, thank you from Trinidad and Tobago. So US patents are relevant around the world. You know, what I like is the Patent Office, to the best of my knowledge, does not discriminate against people from other countries. Sometimes people think like Americans get special treatment. You can get all the same protection that any American can. So I think that's a great thing, and that stimulates the economy.
Yeah, I also think that
Good point.
as inventors, we can do even a better job than what we're doing, right? If we understand what's required to get a patent issued, if we understand how to overcome the prior art, if we understand how to determine if our products are going to be marketable, if we can start to take a little bit more responsibility, then we're going to create better ideas, better inventions, and file better patents. So it's really both of us. It's the USPTO, but it's us too to take responsibility. And I'm going to talk a lot about that because I don't think that people are talking enough about that part of it, right? They're part of our team, and we have to, even with your patent attorney, your patent agent, that is your team, but we've got to give them the right information to help us get better patents, because I think some of the patents that have been issued are a little lean, right? Could be a little stronger, and we could do a little bit more homework. So
Even Eric was typing in if he wanted to say something. Can I unmute him? Is that
Sure.
cool? Okay, here we go, Eric. There you go.
I was going to suggest to you guys, at the state fair, like the California State Fair that's coming up, maybe you guys can talk to the state fair organizers so that we can have an inventors corner to promote individual inventors, entrepreneurs. I think it will be a very interesting program to add to the state fair.
I think
that-
it's a really cool idea, Eric, but you had an even better one that we didn't get to that you had typed. You said, instead of Inventor Month, what about an Inventor Day? And you said in the chat, what about the post office promotes it, where there's stamps with inventors and it's really pushed out on a national level, like a National Inventors Day? That was
Great idea.
Eric's comment. I thought it was a great
I
comment.
think that's a great idea because the US Postal Office is looking for ways to promote themselves.
Sure.
So if the USPTO can combine force with the US Post Office, with the USPTO, I think that there'll be a lot of good things that can be accomplished.
Mhm,
I actually love that idea. In
mhm.
fact, I'm
Well,
not a
but-
stamp collector, but I would be if that was the case.
I mean, Eric, personally, I like that so much better than the state fair. The state fair, it's a limited number of people. That's amazing. Seems a little old fashioned, but your idea with the post office and a National Inventors Day and going nationwide with it, I love that. I think that's great.
Yeah, if that idea is ever gonna fly, I would like to get involved because that would be
Okay.
something I'd be really personally really interested in.
Steven's going to
Yes,
personally spend 10 hours a week working on that, and he will involve you. I'm just kidding. But I do think it's a
Okay.
great idea. You said nobody
Yes.
even knows about National Inventors Month. At our other business, InventRight, we've been promoting National Inventors Month, making people aware, but I don't think most people know it exists. And if you can get the government,
No, I just learned of the Inventors Month just today.
no, okay,
Well,
well,
I have-
and it's last day of the month.
I have a question for you, Eric, and really for all the people on this group. I think that a lot of people have never met an inventor. They don't know inventors still exist. They've never met someone like you. And what I'm curious about after working virtually online for so long is where all of you invent and what does inventing look like to you? You know, does that look like an office? Does that look like a work shed? Does that look like your vehicle? Because you invent and call companies when you're driving to work in the morning. I think that there's a real missing, like we need to put inventing out in front of people's minds, but sometimes there's a lack of visuals for that. You know, you think of an inventor, you think of an old time inventor. Would you want to, I mean,
We'll
do you
talk
agree?
about
Would you want to see those?
We'll
Yeah.
talk about that promotion you're doing next month, Madeline, because I think it ties into that.
Well, I'm trying to test this idea. I'm wondering if, if we ran a campaign asking you to take a photo of yourself in your inventing workspace and share it on social media, if that's something you would think was cool, if that's something you'd think, oh, I hate that. Because I'm kind of a voyeur. I want to see what inventing actually looks like today. But I'm not an
Edgar
inventor.
typed in an interesting comment. He said, inventing is time-space independent. I've found that to be true for a lot of inventors, but everybody, it's different. So
I would like to see George's inventing space because he's been inventing for years. And I bet you he's got the coolest, he's got a cool room. Maybe it's his garage, maybe it's his tools. George, what does your space look like?
here, I'll ask him, unmute him. There you go. There you go, George.
Well, it's just a typical, office for no, well, not even an office, just a computer, and whatever, things you'd have related to a computer, but I also have a small little machine shop where I can manufacture prototypes.
That's what we want to see is that machine shop, because I could tell you, I know you make all this stuff yourself. I bet that looks amazing. We want to see behind the scenes of where you work and you build stuff. I think that would be really interesting because we all do it differently, right? We all have a different place where we love that moment of creativity or making something come alive.
And for
Yeah,
some
but-
of you, is it just in your head? Do you have no workshop? It could be driving or in the shower or wherever. Maybe you don't make prototypes. Jeremy commented, as far as the workshop goes, too many prototypes to hide, exclamation mark. he's like, no, I couldn't take a picture of that. There's too many prototypes to hide. So I thought that was an interesting comment.
The main thing I would say, is go to inventors group meetings and get involved And every meeting, I would take special interest to come up with a few questions. And then I'd go to the inventor group meeting and get the answers to the questions. Then that was my homework for the next week. And I mean homework. And then the next meeting, more questions, and then so on and so forth. And to me, you get out what you put in. So I would suggest people go to these inventor group meetings, and ask questions. And I know a lot of them are online now, so you can't quite do as much as you used to, but you can still ask questions and get involved and just really start digging.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely.
For
And you guys
sure.
can go to our website, the IGA website, and find lists of inventor associations. And George's group is in San Antonio, Texas. So,
Well, Madeline, I want to thank you for doing such a great job and making sure you have the ear of the new director. So if anybody's got any issues or questions, make sure we reach out to her and let's keep those doors open so we can share what our concerns are.
I think we got to wrap up, but Rona specifically asked if she could say something. So we'll unmute her real quick and then we're going to call it a day here. Go ahead, Rona. There you go. Go ahead.
Hi, I am so proud of this meeting. I know I tend to step in at times. I speak about intellectual property in Trinidad and Tobago because I am really the one pushing IP. Intellectual property is pushing it, but I'm pushing the envelope of invention and innovation. And I just came back from Jamaica speaking to 32 entrepreneurs about trademark, copyright, intellectual property with the World Intellectual Property. And I am so happy that I found you all like 2015.
Rona, I love your positivity.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes. So thank you all and doing a great job. And I want you all to continue. And I tell people subscribe to you all because it's a great space to be as an inventor, to listen and to learn.
Excellent.
so
Thank you,
much.
Rona. Thank you. Thank you. All right, guys. Anything you want to say in closing, Madeline?
No, I think we covered it all. We would very much like to hear from you at all times about the type of guest experts you want to learn from. You have a suggestion. If you hate what you've heard, please let us know. I appreciate your time, and I am so.
Yeah, you
I
did
think
a
it's
great
wonderful
job.
that
What do you
you're
mean? You
gathering
and
to
Director
learn.
Vidal did a great job. What do you mean if you hate what you heard?
I don't know. I'm open to feedback. Feedback's the
Got it.
best.
Okay, that's
someone cares
fantastic.
enough to
That's
tell you
great.
something. Really,
Yeah.
I value that. So yeah, that's all.
Excellent. All right, guys. Everybody take care. Keep inventing, and we'll catch up with you next time. See you guys. Bye.
Bye.